Moving on now. We have a guest in the studio that has nothing to do with Sarasota politics. She actually came down from Tampa, and her name is Whitney Brew, and she's the walk manager for Walk to Defeat ALS, more commonly known as Lou Gehrig's disease. Whitney, welcome to Local Matters.
Thank you for having me.
So you have an event coming up here in Sarasota at Payne Park. Tell folks about the Walk to Defeat ALS.
Our 4th annual Sarasota Walk to Defeat ALS will take place on Saturday, April 14th at Payne Park, downtown. Check-in is at 8:30, and the walk starts at 10. Last year we raised over $100,000 here in Sarasota, and this year we're aiming to raise about $130,000, which will be great.
Wow, that's significant. How many people participate?
We're hoping to have about 600 people this year. Last year we had about 500, so we're always hoping to recruit a few more walkers. So we're looking at about 600 people. And
these are folks, a lot of these folks are families affected by ALS, people who have ALS?
Yes. Family and friends will create walk teams, either in honor or in memory of someone. So if the team is in honor, we'll usually have the ALS patient join us with their family, and then some of our families are memory teams, and they're walking to remember someone who has already lost their fight with ALS. So everyone is there for different reasons, but kind of one common goal, and that's to create a world without ALS.
And if people wanted to go online to find out about signing up for the walk, can they do that?
Yep. www.walktodefeatals.org. And they can learn about
ALS.
They can learn more about the disease, more about the Sarasota Walk, and more about other walks happening around the country.
And in a few minutes, we'll learn a little bit more about the clinical side of Lou Gehrig's disease when we're joined by ALS Association clinical expert Patti Stanco. Whitney, you do these walks all over the state. It's not just in Sarasota?
Yes, we do 8 walks around the state in every major market. And the walks, the ALS Association is the only national nonprofit that funds not only research, because we obviously want to find a cure and a treatment for this disease, but we also fund patient care. Until there's a cure, there is care. So it's very important to us to make sure that people suffering from this disease have the resources to have a good quality of life. So that's what these walks are all about, is, raising money to find that cure, but also providing a good quality of life to ALS patients and their families today.
Now, my father died of Lou Gehrig's disease, ALS, in 2004, and I know one of the challenges was my mother became his caregiver. Does the ALS Association Florida chapter, do you do much in terms of assisting caregivers, giving them advice, maybe telling them where they can get a little break, a little relief so they can get out on their own for a little while?
We sure do. Every ALS patient and their family is assigned a care coordinator. We have amazing care coordinators across the state. Patti Stanco is one of them. And so those care coordinators work with the families to try to figure out everything. It's a complicated disease it's very hard to be a caregiver to an ALS patient. So we provide that. We also have monthly support groups around the state where caregivers and patients can meet up with other people going through the same thing. And then we also do provide respite grants, which actually will help pay for home health assistance.
Yeah, if you're not familiar with Lou Gehrig's disease, it's a degenerative muscle disease, and what happens is you begin to lose your strength. In my father's case, it started with him with his balance. His balance seemed off, and he went through many, many tests. He probably had it for longer than most people have it, and they were testing his ears and is it vertigo? They just couldn't figure out what it was, and then finally when they retired to Florida, they went up to Shands up at the University of Florida, and they finally diagnosed him with Lou Gehrig's disease, and he lived about 3 years after that. And one of the things that happens is, you go to a cane, and then to a walker, then to a wheelchair, and toward the end, my dad would have to use one arm to kind of lift. If he was eating a sandwich, he'd use one arm to lift his other arm to get the sandwich to his mouth, and he died about 6 months before we expected him to pass away. He went to lay down one day to take a nap, and he never got up, which in some ways is merciful, because what happens with a lot of ALS patients is they get bed bound, and they eventually, their lungs don't have the strength to help them keep breathing. So that was how my father passed away from it.
It's a very painful disease. How many people are afflicted with this disease? Do we have general numbers for?
There's 30,000 people in the United States estimated with ALS, and it is a small number. That's because every 90 minutes someone is diagnosed, and every 90 minutes someone passes away. There is no cure, there is no treatment. So unlike other diseases like cancer, there are cancer survivors. There are people that beat it. No one beats ALS because we still haven't found that cure yet.
So it's a very serious disease.
It is.
And we have a local musician, Dan Toller, who recently was diagnosed with ALS and had a couple benefits around town for him. All right, we're going to not switch to the phone, but we're going to go to the phone, and we're going to bring another person into this conversation, and that would be ALS Association, Florida chapter, clinical expert, Patti Stanco. Hello, Patti.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Thanks for calling in. We just heard Whitney talking about, as of now, there is no cure for ALS. Is there any hope on the horizon of an eventual cure for this terrible disease?
There is, and actually we like to say, while there is no cure at this time, there is care, and we're making great improvements in terms of even the quality of care and our ability to more effectively manage the symptoms, in addition to some exciting clinical trials that are definitely providing hope for being able to slow progression.
What are these clinical trials showing?
Well, there's a large phase 3 clinical trial going on in 12 countries, including the U.S., and there's 3 clinical trial sites in Florida. It's called the Empower trial, looking at a compound called dexpramipexole that we're very excited may show some promise for slowing progression and helping patients maintain strength, which would go a long ways towards improving their quality of life.
And when you say phase 3, you mean they're at a serious critical level?
Yeah, phase 3 clinical trial means that the drug has undergone some basic safety and tolerability studies in humans. So it's been shown to be safe and tolerable in the recommended doses, and now we're going to look to see if it can provide a clinical benefit. So it's the last phase before approval by the FDA.
Patti, what are the theories on the actual causes of ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease?
Well, that's one of the biggest problems. We don't know what causes ALS, and you can, other than it's twice as likely to occur in the military, and so veterans are twice as likely to get ALS as someone in the general population. But aside from that, we really don't know what causes it. At the biochemical level, all of the latest research is directed towards looking at protein pathways. So you have the motor neuron cell, and it's got things going on, and there's lots of regulatory things that happen around the cell, including waste products have to be removed, and some substances are actually recycled at the cellular level. And what seems to be happening in ALS is that those pathways aren't operating properly. So if you imagine, most of us live where we have garbage picked up once or twice a week and recyclables picked up, and just imagine if the garbage truck stopped coming or the recyclable truck stopped coming, and after maybe 6 months it would be kind of a toxic environment, and we think that's what's happening with ALS. So that's where some of the compounds we're looking at to see if they can help maybe get the garbage truck to come at least once a month.
Patti, what are some of the early symptoms of ALS? I was talking before you called in that for my dad, he started to lose his balance, and he wondered if it was vertigo or something in his inner ear, and it took a long time before he finally found out what it was. What are some of the symptoms?
Well, that's a good point, because it is a difficult disease to diagnose, and we always say that every patient has a story, and the story always begins with the process of getting diagnosed. There's no positive test for ALS, so it's a process of ruling out all the other things that could be causing those symptoms. in about 3/4 of patients, or 75% of the time.